Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Rehab Revolution. I'm your host, Dr. Samantha Ritz, PT DPT. I am a private practice physical therapist that's treating in the DFW area. I specialize in racket sports, which is pickleball and tennis players, and I am right now in the journey of starting my own private practice over the past couple of months. So today, I want to talk a little bit about my story and how I got here. So why I left traditional healthcare and why I decided to start my own private practice so soon after graduating in 2020 is when I graduated PT school. So today is going to be a little bit of a Q&A session. So I'll ask some questions that people have asked me in the past or things I found online of kind of common questions to ask someone who's transitioned from that kind of traditional PT world to the now non-traditional private practice concierge model. So I'll go through the Q&A and then we'll go from there. All right, so the first question I have for today is, what motivated you to transition from traditional healthcare model to opening your private practice PT clinic? So I will say a little bit about myself. I graduated in 2022 from University of North Texas Health Science Center out in Fort Worth. I started at, your kind of run-of-the-mill outpatient clinic where I was generally pretty happy. By the end of the first year, I was seeing my average caseload with about 80 to 100 patients, which if you're trying to do the math isn't mathing. I'm seeing like 3 to 4 patients an hour. Plus on top of that, I'm required to do documentation, stay on top of authorization, things like that, as well as taking on students and, other things around the clinic as well. So at that time I was getting pretty burnt out, I will say. Now, this is just me personally. Some people like the pace and they like having a lot of patients. For me, it just wasn't it. I didn't feel like I was able to get that one-on-one time with my patients, and I was just kind of drowning in the paperwork as well. So because of the overwhelm, I decided to look into cash-based PT, kind of that concierge model. And what I found was you're able to do the one-on-one sessions. You're able to have time. You have the flexibility of the schedule, especially normal outpatient PT scheduling is, you're at least working until 7 p.m. some days. You're up as early as 7 a.m. some days. Sometimes you're required to work weekends, just depending on that outpatient model. For me, it's just not what I wanted. I like to have my afternoons. I didn't want to be working until 7 p.m. sometimes. And so I decided this year to make the jump. So I left my traditional role in, I guess, August was my last week. And then I opened my own private practice here in kind of the Richardson Plano area. So that's really my main motivation, is trying to leave those really, really large numbers of patients, trying to get back to that one-on-one model of care. I just felt like seeing 3 to 4 patients an hour wasn't helping anybody, wasn't helping me, and wasn't helping the patient as much as I could have. And that's really my main motivator on that one. All right, so the next question is, what challenges did you face during the process of starting your own clinic, and how did I overcome them? So I will say starting your own clinic is difficult. So it's not for everybody, so much back end stuff. You've got to set up your LLC. You've got to set up your MPI. I had to get a new MPI because for my new company, I had to get, make sure all my tax information was correct. I had to set up my own business account. Now I have to do my payroll. I'm in charge. I am everyone. So now I'm the office coordinator. Now I'm the scheduler. Now I'm the, I do not take insurance, but if you did take insurance, you're going to be the insurance author. You make sure you're authorizing all your insurance. So you're really wearing so many hats. So I will say some of my early challenges were trying to get everything organized. It's so much going on. I am someone who has to take things and put them in boxes. Once everything's in a box, then I'm able to kind of go through and organize everything. But until that moment, I was so overwhelmed. So really, I guess the first couple of challenges that I really had to overcome were getting organized, having a step-by-step plan. Now for this, I would recommend getting a business coach. I had one. She's amazing. Dr. Morgan Meese, shout out to her. She basically had a course for me. We went step by step. And so having everything broken down that way made it so much easier to get through the day, to get through that, very nitty-gritty beginning stuff. All right. Now the next one, can you share some key differences between working in traditional healthcare and running your private practice? Okay, so kind of like I said earlier, now you are everyone. So you wear all the hats. You're having to schedule, you're having to make sure you plan accordingly for if this patient likes this time. Also, I'm mobile, so I go to people's homes, their offices, meet with them on the tennis court, whatever they prefer. So I also need to structure my day where I don't want to be going this one location in Plano and then going all the way over somewhere 30 minutes away and then going back to that location in Plano. So I also have to figure out how to structure my day to where all my patients are grouped together. So that's one thing. Another thing is making sure all my documentation's done, all my progressions, my regressions. I operate out of Google Docs, so I have kind of like a patient file on everybody of how I'm progressing, where we're at, what our measurements are, what the progress notes are looking like, and then making sure that we're staying up to date on the plan of care. I'm also the marketer, so I will say that's not something I ever did before, but now, you gotta run the social media, you gotta run your marketing, I had to build a website. These are things I've never done before. So definitely when you're running your own private practice, unless you're able to outsource all these things, I just decided to do it myself in the beginning. You truly are I felt more like a business owner versus a physical therapist for a bit. Now, it's kind of half and half where I'm treating, as you're building that caseload, you're really learning a lot of business skills at first, and you kind of forget about your PT side, and then as you build that caseload back up, then you kind of become your PT self again, and then you can kind of start to fade out a little bit of the business stuff. But I will say that's the main difference for me is I learned so many different skills because I was really having to learn the business side and not just the physical therapy side. All right, next question. So what are the primary advantages of providing PT in a private practice setting, both for me and for my patients? So I would say number one, for me, flexibility. I love having the flexibility to plan my own days. If I want to take a long lunch, I can. If I want to have an early morning and be done by noon, I can. Or if I want to work late that afternoon, there is something different about waking up at 7 a.m. for someone else versus yourself. That's something I learned. I am not a morning person, but now that I'm working for myself, getting up at 7 a.m. if it's a patient that really needs that time, I just feel so much more inclined to do that versus whenever I was in the outpatient model, I had to be there at 7 a.m. no matter what. That was a little irritating to me, I would say. So freedom is the number one most beautiful thing about having your own private practice. Now, for my patients, it's that one-on-one care. You get a full hour, give or take, what we need to get done with me. You have my hands. I'm able to be so much more hands-on. I am a true believer in manual therapy. I know there are some people out there that, go a little bit more exercise-based. I'm very exercise-based, but now that I'm in this cash-based concierge model, I will say I'm very hands-on. Basically, you're getting my hands for the full hour. Whereas when I worked in traditional outpatient therapy, you maybe got my hands for like 10 to 15 minutes. Now, whenever I was kind of with students, I always said, as a physical therapist, your patients are paying you for your brain and for your hands. So if you're not good with your hands, you got to figure out how to do that. So now that I am in this private practice setting, I'm able to provide a lot better care, and I think higher quality and more intense care for my patients because I'm able to be so much more hands-on. I will say I'm also very huge into education. I want my patients to know exactly what's going on, why I'm doing the things I'm doing, so that they know when our treatment ends exactly what to do, what not to do, and how to progress and regress themselves. So I'm able to do that a lot more now in this private practice setting, being able to get that really hands-on intensive care. So the next question is, how do you maintain a patient-centered approach while operating a private practice? So, kind of just what I was saying is I'm able to be so much more hands-on because we're able to take all of the minutes in that session. It's just me and you. So any questions you have, I'm there to answer immediately. You're never with a tech, you're never with anyone else but me. I'm able to put a lot more time aside outside of our session for research, for progressions, for regressions, to really map out everything. Where I felt like whenever I was having 80 to 100 patients a week, that wasn't as possible for me. It is really hard. It was really hard for me to do that for every single patient. Whereas now I have a smaller caseload that's a lot more manageable for me. I'm able to put a lot more time into it, truly. Which is unfortunate that I wasn't able to do that in that outpatient setting, because you're still paying the same patient-wise. But I will say in my private practice, because I have such a much more smaller caseload, I'm able to really put in the behind the scenes work there, which just makes the rehab process a lot better. And if you want to check out my other podcast video, you can see, the 4 stages of effective rehab. I'm able to really kind of outline everything a lot easier, and then I'm able to do that with my patients a lot more often than I was in the past. Whereas in the past I was just doing everything in my head. Now I'm able to put it on paper. I'm able to really go out through the nuances of how to progress or regress people, or where we are in that plan of care. All right, next question. Could you elaborate on the flexibility and personalization that you can offer in your clinic that might not be possible in a traditional healthcare setting? Well, I guess that's kind of what I was just saying. So now, because I'm able to have that all that time outside of our one-on-one session, I'm able to really outline exactly what we're doing, what the small nuances are, where do we need to progress? Is it a single leg stability thing? Is it an isometric thing? Are we having, pain in this certain range of motion? So I'm able to be a lot more specific, I think, versus where in the past, whenever you get overwhelmed, it's easy to get general. It's easy to put everyone in kind of these groupings of boxes. Whereas now I'm able to be so much more specific to you. I get that full hour eval. I'm able to really figure out what makes you tick, why your body's feeling this way, why we're having pain in this motion. And then I'm able to take those and really be specific in treatment throughout our plan of care. Whereas in the past, I might not have been able to be so specific, because when you're having 6 to 7 evaluations a day, you forget those small things. We're human. And now, I maybe have 1 eval a day or a couple of sessions a day. So I'm able to remember exactly what's going on. I'm not asking the same question multiple times. Whereas in the past, I felt like I could have been better at that in outpatient, but I was just so overwhelmed. All right, here's a good question. So how do you handle insurance and billing procedures in your private practice, and what are the benefits of this approach for patients? So this is a great question, because I do not take insurance. So I am a completely cash-based here with Function Physical Therapy, and here are my reasons, all right? So I don't take insurance because insurance is such a headache. I will say the private healthcare system in America, it works for certain things. It also doesn't work as well as it could in certain areas. One of them is being insurance reimbursement. Now, to explain to you a little bit about why insurance charges the way it does, is because when you go, let's say you go see a physical therapist in an outpatient clinic, and your copay is $50. $50 to $100 is kind of normal for what I see. You go, you get a script, it's PT 3 times a week for 6 weeks. It's kind of normal. Now you're paying that copay every single time, $50, right? Even in, and this is, okay, let's say you're in the beginning of the year, you haven't met your deductible yet. So that's adding up. That's like $150 a week. And you're doing this for 6 weeks. And then you get there, you get a PT for 15 minutes, in some clinics. This is not every clinic. This is just kind of what I've seen. You get a PT for 15 minutes. They kind of do manual, do everything. Now, some people I've been talking to, they don't even get the PT at all. They saw them the first visit and last visit, which is atrocious. If you're working in a place like that as a physical therapist, you need to leave. And then they were getting the tech for the rest of the session. And so just basically being at a gym, someone telling you what to do, that's a personal trainer, in my opinion. If you're a physical therapist, we need to make sure that we're doing things that are very functional, that are actually hitting our goals. Why are we doing the things we're doing? If you're just getting bridges and clamshells, go somewhere else. So you're seeing a PT 3 times a week, your copay is $50. So that's basically $150 that week, and then you're seeing them for 6 weeks. So do the math, it adds up. And then you leave and you get the surprise bill in like 3 months from the PT clinic saying this is how much you owe, because your insurance is giving the estimate on what they're going to cover. That's not always the case. They could underestimate, and then you have all this extra money that you have to pay, which is what I've seen with my patients, and it's very, very confusing. After seeing that, I was just like, I'm not going to deal with insurance. I'm not going to deal with any of that. Now, with cash-based, you get one flat rate. no matter what we do during that session, it's the same amount no matter what. There's no surprise fees at the end, nothing like that. With insurance, you also get reimbursed a certain amount for what you do as a physical therapist. That's how you bill. So really, these PT companies are charging these insurance companies $450 for a session because they know they're only getting reimbursed 60, 70, whatever percentage of that session is. That's why with outpatient, they have to bring in so many people to cover their costs. That's why when outpatient, you're not usually one-on-one. You're usually seeing multiple people an hour. And as a patient, you don't feel like you're getting that one-on-one care because usually there's at least 3 to 4 other people in there with you. So that's why the insurance company scheme is so convoluted, because no one really knows what you're getting reimbursed. So everything gets inflated, and then who loses? The consumer, right? Because you're the one paying the price. The outpatient companies are overcharging the insurance companies because they know they're only going to get a portion back. Well, at the end of the year, the insurance company decides, now we're going to reimburse even less. So then the PT company charges even more the next year, and then so on and so on and so on until now you're going to a PT place and they're charging $200 a session and you're one of 4 people in there at the same time. It makes absolutely no sense to me. So that's why I decided I'm going to go private practice. I'm going to make it a lot more streamlined. You're going to have one flat rate. You're not going to have any surprise fees. No one's confused. Everyone's happy. And then you see me a lot less. So generally in cash-based PT, you see me once a week, maybe once every 2 weeks. So it's more of a maintenance thing because you have my hands for the whole session. I expect you to do more on your own. I'm not going to kind of hold your hand through the exercises once you understand them. I expect you can do those things. Now we're going to do the things that you can't do on your own with me. Whereas sometimes in outpatient physical therapy, the whole time you're there, you're on your own, you're doing exercises. People are kind of checking in every now and then. But for me, I would rather spend the time being hands-on. All right, last question for today. So what advice would I give to other PTs or healthcare professionals considering transitioning into private practice? So number one, I would advise on, if you do leave and you do start your own private practice, who are you marketing to? What's your ideal client population? Is it realistic? Do your market research. Make sure that there is a market for that in your area, so you're not just quitting, going on your own, and then there's no one there that wants to be a patient. I would also say you can also limit your hours in your normal PT job and then build up your hours in your private practice and then still have that income if you need. For me, I quit cold turkey. I was just like, I had the money saved up and I decided this is what I wanted to do. But there's some ways that you can kind of transition in. It's less overhead and there's also less risk. So if you know that you have to have you have a mortgage or you have a family and you really need that income, that's a good way to do it, kind of slowly transition into it. Also, my other advice was the main thing is make sure you're passionate about what you do. Your patients will know if you love what you do versus when you don't really like what you do. It's just a job. I say the number one reason that I have been able to be somewhat successful in this is that I am passionate about what I do. I love what I do. I love my patients. I want them to get better. Even when I'm not always the option or I'm not always the best thing for them, I will make sure that I go out of my way to make sure and find what the best thing for them is. And so I say, if you're passionate about something and you're good at something, the business will come, the money will flow, the success will come, but, believe in yourself and make sure that this is what you want to do. Don't waste your time. Private practice is a lot of work, but if you love it and you know that you can help people with it, then you're going to be uber successful, especially in this market right now when I think traditional healthcare is going to start to kind of fade into the background. And I think this concierge model, this cash pay model is going to start to become more of a foreground because you just get better care, in my opinion. All right, so that's kind of today's session. Talked a little bit about why I left traditional healthcare, what are some of the benefits, some common questions that people have for me. And I really hope that this gave you a little bit of knowledge, gave you a little bit of education on why I left and kind of some of the things I've been dealing with. If you have any questions at all, just comment below or find me on Instagram. I'm Dr. Sam Function PT, or on Facebook, Function Physical Therapy. And then I also have a YouTube channel as well that I'll link below here. So hopefully this was helpful and y'all have a great rest of your day. Thank you.